Believe it or not, CNN did some decent investigative journalism for this next story. A small Cessna Citation jet flying straight into Washington's highly restricted airspace would typically be met with fighter jets on its wings. But when one flew over the nation's capital on June 1st and circled the White House 20 times, it was hardly an accident. The plane was only one of several aircraft, both piloted and unpiloted, that CNN has been able to track flying over protests in Washington, Minneapolis, and Las Vegas. Government watchdogs fear the planes were used to track protesters and perhaps capture cell phone data. The government's use of surveillance planes to watch over those protesting the police killing of George Floyd has captured the attention of nearly 36 Democrats in Congress who want to know whether the planes, typically equipped with live video cameras and heat sensors, were used for surveilling Americans engaged in peaceful protests. In a June 9th letter to the heads of the FBI, Drug Enforcement Administration, Customs and Border Protection, and the National Guard, lawmakers demanded an end to the practice immediately and permanently and called the use of aircraft above protests a deep and profound breach of Americans' First and Fourth Amendment rights. Now, before people start giving credit to these Democrats here, just understand a strongly worded letter means Dickie McGee's axe. In fact, the Democrats helped give Donald Trump more spying powers. They keep reauthorizing the Patriot Act, which also, just so everybody understands, proves how they know their own stuff about Russiagate was BS. Because they claim that Trump is a Manchurian candidate, he's a puppet of Vladimir Putin, and then they repeatedly vote to give him increased spying powers. If he was Vladimir Putin's puppet, wouldn't you say no more spying at all? And they give him more money in the military budget than he even asks for. So they give him a bigger military budget and more spying powers, and they say, oh my God, he's a Manchurian candidate doing Vladimir Putin's bidding. You don't believe that. I know you don't believe that. I know you don't believe that. So a strongly worded letter doesn't mean anything. But let's reflect on what the government is doing here. Now, I'll go a step further. There is no question. If you have a small plane flying in the most restricted airspace in the world and there's no fighter jets around it, that means it's accepted and it's allowed to be there. It's only allowed to be there. The only thing that would make sense, if it flew around 20 times in the same area, the only thing that would make sense is it is spying. That's what it's doing. Now, under our Constitution, the government really is not allowed to spy on peaceful protesters. We have a right to peacefully protest. That's in the First Amendment. And we have a protection from unreasonable search and seizure as well. That's the Fourth Amendment. So, crystal clear, you cannot spy on peaceful protesters who are doing the most American thing imaginable, which is having their voices heard. You cannot do it, but they're doing it. And listen, this gets into a bigger conversation about the CIA, about the FBI, and about how these organizations have always done things that are objectionable, illegal, unconstitutional, and unacceptable, but as part of the culture in Washington, D.C., and to them, it's nothing. It's just another random Tuesday. And I mean, listen, our intelligence agencies sent a letter to Martin Luther King saying, we know you've been cheating on your wife, you should probably kill yourself. They tried to catch Malcolm X cheating, but Malcolm X wasn't cheating. You know, the CIA obviously has done assassinations throughout their history, and probably still to this day, any third world governments that are acting up, that are not falling in line and being our good little corporate puppets, they take action. So domestically, they do the same thing. If they think anybody is threatening their power, their control, their authority, if people are challenging the status quo too much, they come after you. Listen, they admitted it. What was it? There was a clip that came out. I think one of them went on Tucker Carlson's show like 2 years ago. And he said, yeah, one of the things that we're supposed to do as part of U.S. intelligence agencies is undermine left-wing movements. Undermine left-wing movements. So that's what they're doing. They're getting all the information on these people protesting. They'll add them to some sort of unconstitutional U.S. watch list, government watch list. They'll equate them with, like, you know, terrorists like Al-Qaeda or what have you, and they'll just say, hey, no, we have to do this because these are all Antifa terrorists. They'll come up with some BS rationalization like that. And it doesn't matter that you're peaceful. You've already been lumped in with the bad guys. So this is the way our system works. Your government's not protecting you. Your government's not, they don't care about you. They view you as an enemy to be spied on, to be stalked. They view you as somebody who threatens their power and their control in the status quo. So they will try to make your life a living hell if it comes to it. Just like they did with Malcolm X, just like they did with Martin Luther King. They have no real sympathy, and they have no real ideology other than rank authoritarianism and preventing progress. They think left-wing movements threaten the status quo, and they're right about that. But, left-wing movements are also correct in the sense that they were correct when it came to Civil Rights Act and the Voting Rights Act. They're correct now in fighting for police reform. Any movement towards ending war. These are other kinds of protesters that they've spied on and they will continue to spy on. I'm telling you, you're viewed equal to a terrorist if you're an anti-war protester, if you're a Black Lives Matter protester. Just so everybody understands, we learned recently that the government was it the FBI? I think it was the FBI. They had a whole sub-agency that was looking into black identity extremists. So, this is what's happening. They don't care about the First Amendment. They don't care about the Fourth Amendment. They don't care about protecting freedom, liberty, and justice. They'll take away your freedom in a second, and they'll spy on peaceful protesters, and if need be, if they think they have to, they'll make your life a living hell simply because you're standing up to have your voice heard and you're trying to fix the system. This is what your government is doing. This is what they're doing. So, you should not trust them at all when it comes to waging war. You should not trust them at all when it comes to cracking down on protesters, because absolute power corrupts absolutely. It's the old saying. And they have the power, they have the control, and they will do everything they can to hang on to it and to maintain the status quo. And you are their enemy. Even if you're just simply calling to improve the system, you are their enemy. And they couldn't make it more clear, and now I would consider this proven, that they're spying on peaceful protesters, and they will have you on some sort of list, and that Orwellian future that we often talk about, it's already here.